What if the worst betrayal of your life was not the end of your story, but the beginning of God's plan? Imagine being hated by your own brothers, rejected by the people who should have loved you, thrown into a pit, sold like property, forgotten in a prison. And yet, through every moment of pain, God was still writing a greater story. This is not just the story of Joseph. This is the story of what God can do with betrayal, delay, and suffering. Because sometimes the place that feels like the end is only the hidden road to purpose. Let's step into one of the most powerful stories in the Bible.
Joseph was the son of Jacob, and from the beginning his life was marked differently. His father loved him deeply and gave him a special robe, a visible sign of favor. But what looked like love to Joseph looked like unfairness to his brothers, and slowly their jealousy began to grow. Then came the dreams. Joseph saw images of greatness, glimpses of a future where others would bow before him. He did not fully understand what those dreams meant, but one thing became clear: God had placed something unusual over his life. But the moment Joseph shared those dreams, the hatred around him deepened. Sometimes the call of God on your life will attract misunderstanding before it attracts honor. And Joseph was about to learn that in the most painful way possible.
One day, Joseph was sent by his father to check on his brothers. He came in peace. He came unaware. He came trusting. But while he was walking toward them, they were already plotting against him. They didn't see a brother. They saw the dreamer, and they wanted to silence the dream. They stripped him of his robe, the symbol of favor, and threw him into a pit. Pause there for a moment. A pit is more than a hole in the ground. In Joseph's story, it became the place where betrayal became real, the place where trust was shattered, the place where the pain of rejection became impossible to ignore. Can you imagine Joseph calling out to his brothers? Can you imagine the confusion in his voice, the heartbreak, the silence? And then, as if the pit was not enough, they sold him. Joseph was not just rejected, he was discarded. And yet, even there, God had not abandoned him. Because the pit was not the end of Joseph's story, it was the beginning of a painful preparation. Joseph was taken to Egypt, far from home, far from his father, far from everything familiar. Nothing about this season looked like the promise God had shown him. He had dreams of rising, but now he was a slave. He had visions of purpose, but now he was owned by someone else. This is where many people would give up. This is where many would assume that the dream had died. But Joseph did something remarkable. Even in pain, he remained faithful. He served well. He worked with integrity. He did not let bitterness destroy his character. And the Bible shows us something beautiful. The Lord was with Joseph, not only in the dream, not only in the victory, but in the suffering. That matters, because many people believe God is with them only when life is going well. But Joseph's life reminds us that God is also present in the seasons that make no sense. As Joseph served in the house of Potiphar, he gained trust, influence, and responsibility. It looked like life was finally turning around. But then came another blow. Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph, and once again, Joseph suffered for doing what was right. Think about how painful that must have been. He had already been betrayed by his brothers, already been torn away from home, already lost his freedom, and now, after choosing integrity, he was punished again. There are seasons in life when doing the right thing seems to make everything harder. Joseph lived in one of those seasons, and suddenly the man who had done no wrong was thrown into prison. Again, it looked like everything had fallen apart. Again, it looked like the promise had moved farther away. Again, it looked unfair. But prison, too, would become part of the process. Prison is where many stories would stop. Darkness, delay, silence, forgotten days, unanswered questions. Joseph could have become bitter. He could have allowed pain to turn into anger against God. He could have decided that faithfulness was pointless. But somehow, even in prison, the favor of God remained on his life. Joseph began interpreting dreams for others. Even in confinement, his gift still had value. That is a word for someone listening right now. Just because you are in a hard season does not mean your gift has disappeared. Just because you feel forgotten does not mean God has stopped working. Just because the door is closed does not mean your purpose is over. Sometimes your prison is not proof of God's absence. Sometimes it is the place where He is preparing the next door. And then, one day, that door opened. Pharaoh had troubling dreams, and no one could explain them. That was when Joseph was remembered. After all the delay, all the injustice, all the waiting, Joseph was suddenly brought before the most powerful ruler in Egypt. And in one moment, the prisoner stood before the palace. Joseph explained the dreams. Years of abundance were coming, followed by years of famine. Egypt needed wisdom, preparation, and leadership. And Pharaoh saw something extraordinary in Joseph. The slave became a ruler. The prisoner became an advisor. The forgotten man became essential. Only God can write a story like that. In a single divine moment, everything changed. But the palace did not erase the pit. It revealed that the pit had never been wasted. Then came the moment no one could have imagined. A famine spread through the land, and Joseph's brothers came to Egypt looking for food. The same brothers who had betrayed him now stood before him in need. This was Joseph's chance for revenge. This was the moment to repay evil for evil, to make them feel the pain he had felt, to return their cruelty back upon them. But Joseph had changed. Pain had not made him harder, it had made him deeper. And when the truth was finally revealed, Joseph spoke one of the most powerful lines in Scripture. "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." What a sentence! Not that evil became good, not that betrayal was acceptable, but that God was so sovereign, so wise, so powerful, that even the evil intentions of men could not stop His purpose. That is the glory of Joseph's story. People can wound you. People can lie about you. People can reject you, but they cannot cancel what God has decided to do through your life. Joseph's story is not only about one man's suffering, it is about the mystery of divine purpose. God did not waste the pit. He did not waste slavery. He did not waste prison. Every painful stage became part of preparation. The pit stripped Joseph. Slavery trained Joseph. Prison humbled Joseph. The palace revealed Joseph. Sometimes we want the palace without the process. We want purpose without pain. We want promotion without preparation. But God often builds in secret before He reveals in public. Joseph had to be shaped before he could be trusted with influence. And maybe that is what God is doing in hidden seasons of our own lives. Maybe the delay is not destruction. Maybe the pain is not pointless. Maybe what feels like abandonment is actually preparation. Maybe you are in a pit right now. Maybe you were betrayed by people you trusted. Maybe you are in a season that feels unfair. Maybe you are doing the right thing and still suffering for it. Maybe your prayers feel delayed and your future feels buried. Then Joseph's story is for you. Because this story reminds us that God is still working when we cannot see it. He is still moving in silence. He is still writing purpose through pain. Your pit is not proof that God has forgotten you. Your prison is not proof that your calling is dead. If God could bring Joseph from betrayal to influence, from slavery to leadership, from prison to purpose, then He can still redeem what looks broken in your life. And when the time is right, what seemed buried will become the very thing God uses for His glory. Joseph's life teaches us that God is not intimidated by detours. He is not defeated by betrayal. He is not confused by injustice. He is not late in the prison season. He is present, He is working, and He is able to turn even the darkest chapters into part of a greater testimony. So the next time your life feels like a pit, remember Joseph. Because the God who met him in the pit, walked with him in slavery, stayed with him in prison, and raised him in the palace, is the same God who still writes.